From the Hill Country in Texas, broadcasting worldwide, this is OneRadioNetwork.com. Very pleasant good morning to you. This is Patrick Timpone, and in my shorts already because it's going to be, they said, the weather guy say 104 degrees today in Central Texas. Well, I'm hoping for an ice age. I don't know about you guys. Open Phone Friday tomorrow, and boy, we have plenty to talk about after some of the interesting guests we've had on. So we'll do that tomorrow. Good morning to you. Here's our phone number, 888-663-6386. Email patrick@oneradionetwork.com. Let us go out to North Carolina and visit with a gentleman that we love having on the show, and it's been a year or so, Andreas Moritz. His website is Ener-Chi, Ener-Chi.com. He has a blog, AndreasMoritzblog.com. You may know him. One of his more famous books is The Amazing Liver Gallbladder Flush. But since we last met him, or talked with him, he's got more books. Prolific, man. I'm going to have to figure out how he does this. Vaccine-Nation. Feel great and lose weight while losing weight and heal yourself with sunlight. And in North Carolina, Andreas Moritz. Andreas, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick. Good warm morning.
Yeah. And you were just telling me you all had a big hailstorm in North Carolina and South Carolina.
Yes, it cooled us right down, but it's going to be up 95 again today.
So yeah, hailstorm at night and then 95 today. Man, that's crazy. What nationality are you?
I was born in Germany, but I lived all over the world, so I'm basically a bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, as you well know, the German culture is very keen on details and very, work ethic. They have a great work ethic.
Oh, they do, I think.
Don't they?
Yes.
So is that where you get this? I mean, you write a lot, don't you?
I try to. There's so much I do every day. I do work still 7 hours a week, 12 hours a day. But I still write, and I've written 13 books now. And
13
there are two more to come out this year.
And you have two more.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend a lot of your time doing consultations with folks around the world, right?
I have cut back on that,
have you?
But I try to focus on writing.
So I want to start with cancer. Andreas Moritz, do we create cancerous cells ongoing in our body? I've heard that. Is that true?
Oh yes.
Do we?
It's just like in any factory setting. When you produce a product, you will have some of them, even though the machinery is perfect, it will still produce faulty products. And like that in our body, when we turn over 30 billion cells per day, 1% of these cells will undergo genetic changes that are akin to cancer cells. So we have to produce cancer cells each day in order to keep our immune system alert and make sure that our ability to deal with cancer cells is up to date. It's never the body's not becoming lazy and forgetting how to deal with cancer cells.
So we're producing cancer cells just because it's the way it was designed and it helps the immune system stay on its toes. So that's separate from cells that may mutate into abhorrent cells with chemicals and things like that.
That's correct.
So in a perfect world, we would still create cancer cells.
We do, and cancer cells cluster together eventually if there is an external threat of some kind, or where we are exposed, as you said, to chemicals which are known as carcinogens, or to radiation that comes from medical instruments, or just the general air pollution or water pollution, fluoride in the drinking water, and other environmental toxins. Food additives. There are many things that can have a carcinogenic effect. That means it changes, or these things change the environment of the cells. And so once the environment of the cells change, then in order for the cell to cope with that very stressful condition, it will have to adjust itself to those circumstances. And in order to do that, it has to mutate. That means the genetic material has to undergo changes in order to live with those threatening situations, and the body does that very eloquently. I'm amazed about how wise these genes are. They can mutate in 15,000 different ways. That means if there is a change in the environment that is that could potentially threaten the life of the person, then these genes will undergo the genetic mutation necessary to deal with that. Unfortunately, we call that a disease. In reality, it's a protective mechanism. It's a survival mechanism.
Is it doing the same thing for radiation, for example, in the air from Japan?
It does that with radiation. Well, the Japanese radiation is actually quite low compared to the radiation that you get from a chest X-ray, or if you have a mammogram, then that is like 2,000 chest X-rays. If you have a CAT scan, a whole body scan, then you have like 50,000 chest X-rays. So the radiation that comes in from these devices, or you go through the airport security, and you go through one of those full-body scanners, according to new research by professors done at 5 universities, you get a 50 times higher exposure to radiation than was initially you're told to us. And so basically you get so much ionizing radiation coming into your system, or non-ionizing radiation, which also can lead to genetic mutations in the cells. So yes, radiation is definitely one of those, and the body can deal with it. So when the person develops a cancer, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It's just the body is trying to right something, is trying to correct something. And that's why if we treat cancer as if it were a disease, then we are in real trouble, because then we put in our own fear and anxiety, which can dampen or suppress any kind of appropriate healing response in the body to deal with this situation.
So that's why it's said often in the last few years, Andreas Moritz, that this early detection that the mainstream media is so keen on, all the mammograms and detect, and early could be more of a problem because perhaps they don't understand what you just said.
That's correct, but they do understand, and there's a lot of scientific research that actually confirms what you just said. So it's no longer just hearsay, or some people thinking about it and putting it into articles, but this has been studied very carefully. So yes, early detection is not an advantage. In fact, with the early detection methods, producing more sophisticated mammograms, for example, for breast cancer, has led to a huge number of cancers detected that are not really cancers at all, or that are just like little benign growth that many women have and live with perfectly comfortably for the rest of their lives without ever having any malignancies developing there. And yet they are being treated as if they had a cancer there, and then they have biopsies, which can then cause so much damage to particular cell groups that are very delicate and sensitive in their structures, that they actually undergo cellular mutation, which then can lead to real cancers. So now there's a lot of controversy in this field. Many doctors and scientists, based on scientific research, say don't do the mammograms. You don't do this early detection because they also found, according to top cancer researchers, that cancer doesn't behave in a straight line, like from A to B. Once you have cancer, then it's going to definitely develop into a tumor that can endanger your life. And in reality, that is not true. In fact, so many cancers disappear on their own, and I've written about it in my book, Cancer is Not a Disease, that up to 95% of all cancers actually vanish on their own. And there are studies done on autopsies of people who died for all kinds of reasons. They were never diagnosed with cancer, but they died from accidents or poisoning or whatever. And they were found to have, on average, about 40-45% of them had tumors, cancerous tumors in their body that never ever bothered them. So if you don't know about the cancer, you have actually a better chance surviving that than if you know about it. So diagnosis can be a very, very tricky thing, because once you have a diagnosis and you go home with that diagnosis, which typically means, oh my God, my life is being threatened, you undergo a severe stressful condition or experience which causes death fright, and death fright triggers the fight or flight response. And that means you produce adrenaline almost like non-stop day and night. You produce cortisol, which suppresses the immune system. The adrenaline and cortisols, constrict the blood vessels to your digestive system. That means you don't digest your food anymore. You don't absorb nutrients. Your body is going into a wasting phase, where the body is losing strength and vitality, and the immune system can no longer deal with it unless you have proper nutrition. That means nourishment of the cells, including the white blood cells and the B cells and so on, the killer cells. So you literally paralyze your entire system when you go home with that diagnosis. You cannot sleep anymore because the brain is trying to keep you awake in order to find a solution to this problem. So the diagnosis, therefore, can lead to havoc in the body, completely upsetting all the hormonal systems, because once you produce the adrenaline for prolonged periods of time, you also cause adrenal damage, you enter exhaustion, there is no energy for anything. And as I said, there are many studies to show that if you have a diagnosis and you deal with it like this, then you don't die from the cancer. The cancer doesn't really have anything in it that can kill someone, but you die from the death fright that you experience. And if a person is being told that they have cancer, then they should be given a solution to it. Not just killing the cancer, but actually empowering the person, making the person feel that the body is actually healing itself, because cancer should be recognized for what it really is. It is a response to an underlying condition, to the causes of cancer that the body is trying to rectify. And it's doing that very eloquently. It even builds, the body builds blood vessels to support these cancer cells. If the body is not wasting resources or energy, it does that because it knows that these cancer cells are doing something good that the body itself cannot do anymore, because we have somehow interfered with that. We have eaten foods that are congestive, that cause gastrointestinal problems, that lead to toxicity. The bile ducts in the liver are clogged up. That the body can no longer purify or detoxify the blood. So cancer cells, by their very design, can take up toxins. They even harbor bacteria and viruses and fungi inside these cells. Next to a cancer cell, you'll find at least twice as many white blood cells, white cells, which cluster together along with these cancer cells. So 60% or more of any tumor consists of immune cells. So why would the body do that? If immune cells are supposed to destroy these cancer cells. It does that normally with the daily occurring cancer cells that are, the 1% cancer cells that you create simply through turnover of cells. But the other kind of cells, the cancer cells that we refer to as tumors or blood cancers, these cells are not targeted by the immune system. The immune system is actually protecting them, and that should be a red flag for us. Why would the body do that?
Fascinating explanation on cancer, and please pass on this link to everyone that you care about and someone in your family that perhaps has it. We're talking with or has been diagnosed with these cancer cells, let me say, because Andreas Moritz says it's not a disease. One of his books, Andreas Moritz, Moritz. Now, his website is Ener-Chi.com, AndreasMoritzblog.com, and he's written 13 books. If you'd like to join us, 888-663-6386. Email Patrick@OneRadioNetwork.com, Patrick@OneRadioNetwork.com. And we already have some emails that we're going to get to. Let me go back a minute. Let's talk a bit about breast cancer. So why do these cells then, why does the body form it into a tumor sometimes in the breast? What is the body trying to do here?
Well, it's actually quite complex because you can never just say that the body is independent of your emotions and feelings and so on. What I found, and there's quite a bit of research now, and even the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, have admitted that emotional stress, emotional distress, which can be for many reasons, like a divorce, separation from a loved one, children being alienated. So there are many conflict situations which can translate into very powerful biochemical changes. Through the brain, we know we produce neuropeptides for every thought, feeling, and emotion we have, and these neuropeptides are very, very powerful. They can suppress the production of interferon, which are anti-cancer and antiviral drugs that the body produces. Or they can suppress the immune system. They can enhance the immune system depending on what kind of thoughts you have. So if you are distressed over a period of time, the body will be forced into protective mechanisms, such as if you, for example, have to fight something. You're in a court battle, and the court battle lasts for 3-4 years. What is happening is that you translate that as a sort of a threat on your survival. And so biological programs will begin to manifest, which will express themselves as producing extra cells. So because you are no longer capable of using what you have, that means, for example, alveoli cells in the lungs, to give you the extra oxygen that you need in order to cope with that stressful situation. Knowing very well that you are under threat, that you're producing the fight or flight response. So that means you are building extra cells in the lungs to take up extra oxygen that these muscle cells and other cells need in order to get through the stressful experience. So now, if you produce those enough, you will find that you have extra groups of cells that seem to be abnormal, that don't belong there. Now, if you get a diagnosis and then they say, well, you have a mass there, a small mass in your lungs, we need to work on this. We need to give you chemotherapy or radiation or whatever. So you go home and you now produce the side effects of the diagnosis, which I've talked about before.
Right.
Now, if you allowed this process to continue and let's say you win the court battle, or the divorce is over and you become friendly with your spouse again, and so it becomes sort of a non-event after a while. Then the body will start attacking those extra cells. It will break them down. It will have to do that through a series of events that will include infection eventually. So inside the tumor, that's why the immune cells will cluster to the tumor cells. It will not kill them. It will allow them and almost protect them. And there is a protein exchange that immune cells produce, and that goes actually onto the surface of the cancer cells, so nobody can harm these cancer cells because they are very important at this stage. These cancer cells will harbor viruses and bacteria, particularly TB bacteria. And so the body always has TB bacteria somewhere. We have to have them. They were given to us when we were breastfed by the mother. So she passes the TB bacteria on to us. So these bacteria and Candida bacteria as well will begin to accumulate in the tumor mass. And it will make the tumor mass grow very rapidly at that stage. And then usually doctors freak out. They say, oh my God, the tumor is growing so aggressively. They call it aggressive tumor growth.
Right.
But in reality, it is building up a lot of lymph fluid and these bacteria until they have reached a saturation point where then there can be a massive infection. And when the infection occurs, your breathing is very shallow. You feel you have fever, temperature. You get actually a massive fever. So the infection will then break down the tumor mass, provided you don't take fever-reducing medication or antibiotics. If you take antibiotics and you reduce the fever, what you're actually doing, you are not allowing the completion of the healing to take place. There are now 151 studies to show that when a person is not allowed to have an infection, your risk of cancer goes up significantly. In fact, when you look at childhood illnesses, these studies have shown that if children are allowed to go through the measles, the chickenpox, and all those other mumps and other diseases, which are meant to strengthen and build up the immunity of the child, if you're not allowing that to happen, these lacking infections during childhood will significantly increase your risk of getting cancer later in life. And now 1 out of every 2 people will develop cancer in this country, which is more than any other country in the world. So we are through the vaccination programs, which is about 3 times as much as a child, let's say in Finland or Iceland, gets. We have much higher rates of cancer in this country, and we should think about why that is. And the new research actually confirms this has a lot to do with not allowing ourselves to have infection. Now, going back to the lung infection, if the lung infection is allowed versus being stopped by medical intervention, if we allow that, then the tumor will break down within 24 to 36 hours.
It'll break down.
Or it will completely disappear.
My goodness.
And it will come out in liquid form through the urine. So the person would go to the toilet about 20, 30 times a day and will pee protein. Literally. So when the doctor, instead of saying, oh my God, the person is peeing protein, there must be some cancer in the body, it's the other way around. It's the body breaking down a cancer.
My goodness.
So if we learned to listen to the body, let the body do its work, and instead of interfering, we would have a chance, to heal cancer naturally. We wouldn't have to have all those cases of complications where 580,000 people die each year from cancer.
And it's the same paradigm, Andreas Moritz, in the breast as well that you just described with the lung tumor?
Yes.
The same?
Well, it depends on the kind of emotions that the person has. So with when you look at someone who has breast cancer, you can trace it back to something that either happened during childhood or an ongoing conflict with a mother or a child, a separation from someone that person loves, someone who died and you couldn't cope with that, like a mother, if a woman was very close to her mother and the mother died, then that can lead to this separation conflict, which can trigger through the body or the mind-body connection by suppressing certain hormones in the body or excessively producing estrogens. So it can lead to estrogenic breast cancer. Genes really don't have anything to do with that. Genes are blamed on this a lot, but these genes, as new research shows, they don't just out of their own just want to create cancer, because genetic mutation alone, according to the latest research, cancer research, cannot produce cancer. Genetic mutation alone cannot produce cancer. There need to be at least 1 or 2 or 3 more cofactors, and these cofactors are diet, lifestyle, eating habits, emotional states, all kinds of things that change the environment of the cell. And so cellular changes, internal changes like nuclear changes, where the genes mutate, the cell mutation, the gene mutation needs to be coordinated with other changes in the cell environment before a cancer cell can develop, because cancer cells cannot grow unless you grow new blood vessels. And to grow new blood vessels has nothing to do with the genetic mutation inside the cells. So you may have tons of genetic mutations and nothing ever will happen to you unless you actually support that, and that the body is actually supporting the cell mutation, and then you develop a cancerous tumor.
When a lady has a breast cancer tumor diagnosed and they say, well, it's malignant or benign, what is the difference of what the allopathic conventional medicine people are seeing, and does it make a difference to the person who's looking at it from a natural perspective?
Well, one is you're supposed to grow aggressively,
right?
But there's nothing in a cancer cell that has a weapon in it. So it's not that your cancer can kill someone. There's no poison in it. It's like not that the body is suddenly causing its own death because it has a couple of cancer cells. What it does is that cancer cells have a better appetite than regular cells. That means they gobble up a lot of glucose. And so they can gobble up 15 times the amount of glucose that a normal cell consumes or is capable of consuming. That means the surrounding tissue can go into a wasting syndrome. But the reason why the body is allowing that is because cancer cells, given the circumstances of what the person is going through, are actually more beneficial. So temporarily, these cancer cells, they can take up poisons, toxins, carcinogens. They can encapsulate themselves eventually, and they can become inactive if we allowed it to happen. But normally, the body will undergo a massive infection if we allowed it, and it would dispose of the tumor. So the more aggressive a tumor is, that means the body is really working on this. Cancer is a healing mechanism. It shows that the body is undergoing the healing already. Before the cancer is diagnosed, let's say in the breast, for example, you may have like 2 billion cancer cells. There's no way that you can detect those 2 billion cancer cells. It's too small. But once it's reaching like 4 billion cancer cells, so suddenly you're able to, the mammogram will find it. Oh, there is a speck of cancer here. So we got it, and the earlier we get it, the better it is. That's not entirely true. Here, if they give you something to reduce it, that means they give you chemotherapy or they radiate it, and then say, oh, we got all the cancer because we can no longer see it. But it's just slipped back to the 2 billion level. It hasn't been completely eradicated. So it doesn't really make a difference. It's just that for the time being, it looks as if you have cut off the tip of the iceberg. You don't see the iceberg anymore, and you think that it's gone, but there's a whole mountain underneath. And so that's why when you do these radical treatments, you don't really do anything to prolong the person's life. According to the latest research and statistics, there is no advantage from chemotherapy and radiation, which have a 2.3% success rate in treating some rare cancers, but breast cancer is not among them.
This may be totally new information to you. If it is, you just sit tight, and you're going to have a lot of it this morning with Andreas Moritz. His email is, his website, Ener-Chi, ENER-Chi.com. Patrick Timpone, One Radio Network, 29 before the hour. Our email, patrick@oneradionetwork.com. Daniel Vitalis, let's play a game. On a desert island, you can only pick one food. Just one. Just only one.
If I had to live off of one food, I think it would be, if I had any choice, it would probably be colostrum. It's the most complete food that I know of. And the thing about colostrum is the first food for any mammal. So it's kind of a no-brainer that colostrum contains all essential fats, it contains all essential amino acids, it contains all essential glyconutrients, which are carbohydrates. It basically contains every substance that we need to maintain our bodies. The first milking you get from a cow after the cow calves is called colostrum. Every milking thereafter is called transitional milk, and what it is it's part colostrum and part milk. So that's something that can happen in the industry because people will sell you the transitional milk and call it colostrum. We're very careful not to do that. We only use the first milking of the animals.
Pure colostrum from Surthrival. They take the moisture out. That's it. To order, click on the picture of colostrum, front page, oneradionetwork.com. I'm with Al Carter. He's the world's foremost authority of rebound exercise. Al, one of my favorite things about rebounding for the last 15 years is I do it. I mean, it's not like something I think about. I do it because it's right there, right on my porch, and I just do it.
That's right.
Yeah, isn't that a wonderful thing? And I heard you say that you can do it whenever you're in the mood, not in the mood, or in the nude.
Yes, and anytime you want to rebound, if it's in your own private home, you can exercise anytime you want to, recognizing you're going to build balance, coordination, rhythm, timing, dexterity, and kinesthetic awareness while building muscle bulk and strength.
How about the ladies listening and building up, like firming the bust line and firming the old buttocks? Does it work for that?
Yes, it will help all those things, but one of the other things it'll do is it'll stimulate or strengthen the sphincter muscles.
Really
those ladies
important.
who know what a sphincter muscle is knows what we're talking about.
Really important. Order yourself a rebounder right now. Front page, look at the display for the rebounders on oneradionetwork.com. Go through PayPal, very secure. Don't have to be a PayPal member. Any credit card, ship it via UPS in 3 days or so. It's all yours. Right on the front page of oneradionetwork.com. Here's health motivator Daniel Vitalis and the benefits of using a far infrared sauna.
Sweating is absolutely going to be one of the most critical things discerning people take on so that they can not only stay healthy, but actually so we can continue to have children that are healthy. We're going to need to sweat. People have sweat all through history. Before the world was toxic, they used that for their health. Now that it's toxic, it's one of the only ways we're going to cleanse our body fat. Our body fat is where we store so much of the environmental pollution. Not just the radioactive elements, we're talking about PCBs, we're talking about plastics, we're talking about a host of pesticides and herbicides, we're talking about heavy metals. Getting this stuff out of our bodies, we're going to need to sweat it out.
And a fast, easy, and affordable way to sweat is with a portable, relax, far-infrared sauna. See all the information. Order with promo code ONERADIO on oneradionetwork.com, a relax, portable, far-infrared sauna on oneradionetwork.com.
Know the source. One Radio Network. Talk to Patrick now, 888-663-6386, or email patrick@oneradionetwork.com.
It's always fascinating to talk with Andreas Moritz. He's in North Carolina. Andreas, thanks for spending some time with us this morning. I want to talk a bit about this connection with infections and cancerous cells, because I don't quite understand it. We've been told by many people over the last few years that there is definitely a connection they seem to be accurate with, for example, maybe root canals and breast cancer and such because of these toxins and maybe the cavitations and gum disease. If that's true, and it seems that it is, the research certainly seems that it is with Dr. Hal Huggins and Dr. Dowling and Dr. Stephen Hines that we've talked to and other people. Is the body trying to deal with these infections or these toxins that are put out by these infections, like with a root canal? Is that what's making more what we call cancerous cells, or what's going on?
There is a difference between chronic infection and acute infection. And so the 150 studies that I mentioned that were incidentally done since 1860, so and up to 2008, and so these studies show that when you have an acute infection that it's like a mumps infection,
something that comes quickly and doesn't stay,
and particularly during childhood, which seems to be very important. But also they found that acute infection, let's say you get a bacterial infection and or a viral infection like the flu and your influenza, and it goes up and it disappears after a couple of days. These are extremely beneficial. Many people who have chickenpox, adult people, get chickenpox and have cancer. They found that the cancer disappeared after the infection.
Because the immune system just got in there and did something.
Right. Basically, the body cleans out. The flu is only necessary if the body is toxic. Otherwise, you wouldn't get flu viral infection. So the body uses bacteria, viruses, and fungi when there is something in the body that it cannot get rid of itself. For example, damaged cells. If you have a root canal and you have damaged nerve cells, the nerve is killed. If you have anything that is dead, like in a root canal, then it will attract automatically certain bugs, certain bacteria, in order to decompose that, because the body doesn't want to have anything dead in it or damaged. So damaged cells will attract bacteria. Fungi go after dead cells. That's why a lot of people have foot fungus. There are lots of dead cells. The circulation is very poor to their legs and to their toes, and so then they attract a fungus that will then dispose of or digest at least some of these dead cells. So whenever there is some good reason for these microorganisms to come into the body, and that causes an infection, if the body keeps producing the same problem again and again, that means the congestion is not alleviated, the liver is not cleaned out, the blood is still unclean, the body keeps dumping toxins into the connective tissues of organs and systems. So after a while, you will develop a chronic infection. Now, when you have a chronic infection somewhere, whether it's in the tooth or somewhere else, then the cells in that area will become, they have to undergo the cellular, the genetic mutation and become cancer cells. Imagine when there is a traffic jam and the cars are not moving. It becomes so congested that the supply routes are interrupted. So it can disturb an entire city. I remember living in Europe. Sometimes the French truck drivers, they would block the highways. They would just be on strike, and then no car could go from anywhere. It just could not move anywhere. So the supermarkets were empty. The grocery stores, there were no supplies anymore. So this could paralyze an entire country, and like that, if there are major parts of the body congested, like the large intestine, if you have constipation all the time, or you have lymph drainage problems, the lymphatic system doesn't work, and the metabolic waste products and the dead cells that you produce, that you try to turn over each day, so get rid of each day, they start clogging up the pathways. And so the body becomes so congested that not even oxygen reaches a group of cells, and that means these cells have to undergo genetic mutation. They have to adjust in order to live off lactic acid, for example, which is a metabolic waste product that is trapped in those tissues. So now these now are called cancer cells, doing at least maintaining some of the functions of the organs, but not the best way. And so, unfortunately, we vilify them. We should praise them and say thank you for at least helping me through this phase, and maybe by cleansing my body, I will be able to reverse this. And then these cells can once again get oxygen. They will either die off or they will revert back to normal cells, because we now know that genes can change in 15,000 different ways. So if you change the environment, they will have to change. The genes have to change because they don't do anything. They're just a blueprint, and the blueprint can be rewritten. And we rewrite it all the time through our feelings, emotions, what we eat, what we expose ourselves to, environmental toxins or fresh air and good clean water. So all of that makes a huge difference. Vitamin D, if a person goes out in the sun on a regular basis without sunscreens and sunglasses, you will produce a lot of vitamin D. And vitamin D is now known to prevent cancers. Why does it do that? Because the vitamin D controls more than 3,000 or 4,000 different genes, very important genes, that are responsible for keeping the immune system strong, keeping the body clean, allowing the digestive system to function well, for the cardiovascular system to function optimally, for the liver to work properly. So all of that depends on vitamin D. And a person who is not getting enough vitamin D will have a problem with these parts of the body. So they become suffocated. And then we then complain that, well, some cells in those organs, they are undergoing genetic mutation, and these genetic mutations supposedly then cause cancer, but this is not entirely true anymore.
Andreas Moritz, in the case of the mouth, we can see how we could possibly have this chronic infection that we don't know about with cavitations or root canals, or where else in the body do chronic infections go on that we don't know about, and how would we know? I mean, the mouth is kind of, it's a little bit easier if you understand what you're looking for. But how would we know if we got chronic infection somewhere else, and where does it happen?
Well, it happens again when there is a need for it. That means when, for example, when an apple falls from the tree, it's overripe. It's been hanging on the tree for too long, and it will drop, and then it will get bruised, and so that's the area where the bacteria will start coming in, and then suddenly you find the whole apple is being digested by these bacteria. It's called decomposition, and then there will be a film, like a fluffy thing around the whole apple, which is the fungus, which goes after the dead apple cells. So basically, this is what happens inside the body when we have areas that are congested, cut off from proper oxygen supply, and so these parts of the body need to be infected. If it's happening in the tooth, the bacteria that decompose part of these cells, or these dead nerve cells or other cells that have been damaged there, then they produce mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are very, very powerful. They get everywhere. And so when they circulate through the body, then they can cause irritation and inflammatory responses. So when you have an infection, you will know that something is not quite right in the body. My energy is low, I may become irritable, I become very emotional, I become depressed or something. You know there is an underlying something somewhere that doesn't allow me to feel good. And when you don't feel good, that means you have an underlying even a little bit of infection. Many people don't realize that the liver, for example, doesn't complain very much. But there can be many liver cells that become damaged and partially decomposed. So we call that liver infection. But liver infection can have like many different levels. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you will detect hepatitis C or B or A or whatever. You can have a very low grade of that simply by having congestion in the bile ducts of the liver, where you can store hundreds and thousands of stones, and the surrounding tissue will start becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, and then you will get bacteria or you get a virus coming in that will enter the nucleus of the cell and will start you're changing it in order for that cell to survive in that environment or to die completely. So that the body uses viruses to kill these cells, which are potentially capable of mutating into cancer cells. So the body uses the help of microorganisms, which then create the infection, but they are themselves not causing the infection. That's the misunderstanding. We give so much false credit to microorganisms and blame them for causing havoc in our body. But this theory, which was started by Louis Pasteur, that's been discredited long time ago. Even by himself, he said it's not true. It's the terrain, it's the environment that attracts these bacteria or germs into it. Without the environment, without the toxins, without the contamination, there is no bacterial or viral infection.
So are you? Could it be said that you're an advocate, even in the case maybe of a Lyme's spirochete or Lyme's bacteria or a herpes or such? Would you ever try to go after that directly with a colloidal silver or something else? You're going to try to actually hit that directly, or would you work on the immune system to have that deal with whatever out there?
Yeah, it's not a problem. I wouldn't use colloidal silver. I would use silver sol, which is a different silver product. It's more efficient. It's smaller. It's nanoparticle silver that is actually dissolved in the water. But in any case, if you want to do that, you want to make sure you stop creating the same situation over and over again. Right. Because then the body will have to come up with other mechanisms which often are creating more severe illnesses than the little infection that you might have had. So it's always wise not to suppress symptoms, but work with the body so that you work on both levels. Deal with the root causes while you deal with the symptoms, to just make your life a little easier, but don't just attack the symptoms without the underlying causes. Otherwise, you end up with worse problems than you had before.
But in general, is it a good idea to be keeping the immune system strong with different products or medicinal mushrooms and things like that? Reishi and
yes, anything that is part of the food chain, anything natural that is fine. I personally don't take anything. I'm 57 years old, and I used to be very ill. When my liver wasn't clean. Many of the supplements that people take, they just don't get absorbed. You end up in your toilet bowl. So it's really a lot of wasted money. It's very hard to absorb a lot of the supplements unless you have a well-functioning digestive system, and then you probably don't even need them anymore.
Yeah.
So the focus should be rather on getting the digestion up to par to make sure that you produce enough bile. Bile regulates almost the entire digestive process. If you have only a quarter or a third of the amount of bile that you're supposed to secrete, then your digestion is not going to work, and the supplements that you take up, even calcium or other minerals, will not be digested and absorbed properly because you need bile to digest and absorb minerals.
So that's why then your book, The Amazing Liver Gallbladder Flush, you think is key that folks can do this and get the bile flowing.
Yes, and you find at least I found because millions of people have done this process now, that people with cancer that you find almost every person who has cancer has congested bile ducts in the liver, and when that is cleaning out, then the body has a chance to mop up toxins. That means the body doesn't have to take recourse to such practices as cancer in order to deal with it.
Let's go back to so many emails we get with ladies, God love them, with breast cancer, tumors. So you're suggesting if it's a mouth issue and you get rid of all these infections, and if you can find a diet that's really working for you, that's good, that your body likes, that the body's going to eat this tumor up. It's gonna go away by itself.
Yes, and that there is a natural course of development, because cancer doesn't develop out of the blue for no good reason. It has a good reason, and the reason is always the body works with cancer to heal itself of something else that's been bothering it for a long, long time. There can be something very simple. For example, I've written in my book, Cancer is Not a Disease, that many cancers are created because women wear bras. Such a simple thing, because bras often cut into the lymphatic ducts. And so the lymph drainage from the breast glands, from the breasts, is inadequate, so the breasts accumulate a lot of toxic materials, such as dead cells. We know that the body turns over 30 billion cells per day.
30.
Now, if you're not removing those cells from the breast tissue, and you don't remove the daily produced lactic acid, uric acid, urea, ammonia, and all those metabolic waste products, which are highly acidic. And if you don't do that, then the tissues themselves become drowned in acid pools. And so there are studies to show that if you don't wear any bras, women who don't wear bras have hardly any breast cancers. And women who wear bras for 8 hours a day, they have a much higher level of breast cancer. And there are some women who wear them 24 hours a day, and they have the highest rates of breast cancer.
My goodness.
So you can see there are many different potential causes that many women don't know anything about. But it's good to learn about them so that you stay away from the need for cancer to grow in the body.
His website is Ener-Chi.com. Andreas Moritz, AndreasMoritzblog.com. Let's take this call. Hi, what's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Alicia, and I'm in Dallas.
Go ahead. You're on the air with Andreas Moritz.
Hi. I do have a question, but I have to tell you, I do not like bras, so hooray. I'm so glad you said that. But getting away without wearing a bra is a whole other issue, I'm sure. The question I was going to ask you, I'm kind of going back. I just had a root canal and I heard you talking about this, that's why I called. I had a root canal because I had a tooth infection at the root of my tooth, and they said it was chronic. I just didn't know that's what was going on. And it was under a crown, but I felt so much better after I did the root canal because, the pain went away, and, I just kind of felt, okay, good, I got it taken care of. But now I'm kind of concerned, considering it was a chronic infection, am I in danger of something? And then also, kind of going along the same lines, is that I have another tooth in my mouth that I think it was a cavity or I had a filling, and it also has an abscess at the root. And they're considering doing a root canal, but they told me, and I see a holistic dentist. She said that, we'll watch it for a little bit and see if the infection will, if your body can just kind of fight it off itself, or if we need to go in and do a root canal. So if you can have any suggestions on what's going on or what I can do, it'd be great.
Well, root canals really are a source of pain in a way, because you don't often know what is going on underneath. You don't really have access to the tubules inside the tooth. These are tiny little tunnels, and if you connect all the tubules, the little tunnels with one another, you have several miles long tunnel. And so in these tiny little tunnels, you have these bacteria sitting there and waiting for something to do. And so if there's more dead material or damaged cell material, they will start keeping the infection going. It just goes up a little while and you feel fine, and then it goes it drops, and so you have these fluctuations that can go on undetected, and you don't realize that there is a source of chronic infection there. So I'm not in favor of any root canals because of that. It's sometimes safer to get the tooth out and work with that later, but it's a real troublesome your way. Always better to make sure that the teeth stay healthy. Each tooth in the body is connected to a different part of the gastrointestinal tract. There is one tooth related to each vertebra of the spine. So if there is any trouble in the digestive tract, you will develop some problems in the respective tooth. So it's good to clean out the digestive system so that the body has a chance to also heal up the tooth situation. But once you have a dead root canal, it's just dodgy. I personally, if I had one, I don't have any tooth problems. I'm 57. I had a tiny little filling that happened because I was eating on a rock, on a stone found in lentils. But I take care of my digestive system, and therefore I don't have any tooth problems. I don't even get my teeth cleaned.
Alicia, I might suggest we have a whole dental section on our website, and you're going to hear lots and lots of various dentists from around the world, including Dr. Hal Huggins, that will tell you their opinion that there is no such thing as a safe root canal. So I would really look at that before you make some decisions about leaving that one in or getting another one.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering, I mean, if can the infection clear up on itself, the one that I have not done a root canal on, or considering it's at the root of the tooth, I mean, way down below the surface, can my body?
It's hard to say, isn't it, Andreas?
Yeah, it's very unpredictable because the whole thing is unpredictable. Killing something in the body and having dead cells sitting there is the chances that bacteria will infect them is very, very high.
Yeah. You really have to find a dentist that is going to be able to go in there and look very, very delicately at this situation. And just because they call themselves holistic dentists doesn't always mean that they really understand how this works. It's very tricky business to mouth. So please listen to our interviews, and then you can make some wise decisions. Thanks for the call. This is from Michelle in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Good morning. Wow, I'm really appreciating your guest. For some reason, this is making something click in my mind and heart. I feel like I actually have some power over what may happen to my body. I was told I had breast cancer 3 years ago and was only 36 years old. I was scared to death. I swear, just hearing that I had cancer took 10 years off of my life. I, of course, did not know what I know now. I was not aware of how nutrition and how the mind-body piece worked. I knew enough that I did not want to have radiation or chemo, so I had a double mastectomy, thinking this would be doing something rather than nothing. Now what is done is done. I wish I had knew what I know now. Andreas now has given me a new way of looking at how my body works. Being told that you have cancer changes you. It leaves you a fear, and if that really doesn't go away easily. I needed a different way to look at my body in order to prepare for my life. So I really appreciate you having him on the show. Wow, that's a touching email, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, let's take this call. Hi, what's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm calling from Austin. I sent you an email last night.
I don't know if I got that one, but go ahead. How can we help, Janet?
Well, I'm a big fan of Andreas. I've read his liver flush book probably 8 times. I've just done my second liver flush.
How was that experience? Did you get some stones?
Yes,
and stuff, huh?
I did. And I'm also an master's degree in pharmacology, actually 105 graduate hours from a top 10 institute, and I'm a holistic health consultant.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very interested in this for myself and for sharing with other people. And in the email I wrote last night, it was actually to make notes so I'd remember what to say to you this morning. I wanted to balance my hormones, lose weight. I'm postmenopausal. It's been very hard for me to shed the excess 70 pounds I've put on since my divorce a couple of years ago. I'm also very allergic, horrible seasonal allergies to mountain juniper, oak pollen here in Central Texas, lots of mold. I have some arthritis, but that's better since I stopped eating tomatoes. In December, I used the 4 Chinese herb tinctures that you mentioned in your book.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted Julia Chang. I read every article on her website several times. I did not get stones out with that flush, but I did a couple of things different. I used magnesium citrate instead of Epsom salt.
Right.
I actually used Natural Calm.
Okay.
You're probably familiar with that. I also did not use olive oil. I used walnut oil, and I vomited.
Yeah.
Later, I was told that was because walnut oil is too hot.
Right. Yeah, I would not recommend that.
Yep, and I found out the hard way. I did get out a lot of bile. I might have gotten some stones, but I didn't really catch those. Now, 5 months later, I did my second flush. I waited because I moved and got distracted. On this flush, I did not drink the apple juice like I did on the last one. I used the malic acid.
Right.
And I took capsules. I didn't see that about putting it in water. I took 2,400 milligrams morning and evening with food. I weigh over 200 pounds, so I figured that's not too much for me. I also did 1,000 milligrams of taurine morning and evening, and I read somewhere that was helpful. And I did that for 5 days.
So how can, Andreas, what would you like to ask him? You have a lot going on.
Cut to the chase. Okay, yeah. I want to know, what does he think about putting the Epsom salts in capsules?
I'm not in favor of that because you want to have it dissolved in enough water so that it can reach the different parts of the liver and the gallbladder and the common bile duct, so that all those parts relax during the liver flush. Whereas if you have it in capsules, then the body will have to supply enough water in order to at least get that done in a similar way. So it makes it much, much easier for the body if it's already diluted.
Well, I did drink it with the 6 ounces of distilled water that I was supposed to dissolve it in. Yes,
it can. That's better if you drink it with the water, but it still would be better if it's non-crystallized when you actually ingest it. Whereas the Epsom salts crystals are harder to dissolve when you ingest that with water than if you already dissolve it in water.
Well, I did read in one flush description, and there's hundreds on the web, to dump the crystals in the water and just toss it down without waiting for them to dissolve. That's what gave me the impression.
No, I in my book I described that it should be properly dissolved to have the maximum benefit.
Okay, my second question, Andreas, is that today I'm starting a master cleanse after 3 days of easing in. I finished my second flush 2 weeks ago. I want to do one every 3 or 4 weeks. Can I do it while I'm on the master cleanse?
I would recommend not to fast because when you fast, you don't produce bile or enough bile. The gallbladder is actually shrinking during that time because there is not enough bile. It's not stimulated, and therefore the body is not producing new or dumping new bile into the gallbladder. When you do a liver flush, you want to have the maximum of bile possible in the gallbladder, so that you once it's stimulated, it's all bringing out the stones with it.
Have you heard of the egg and lime flush?
No.
It's been posted as being easier. Somehow they're doing it without Epsom salts. They are doing it with a little bit of sunflower oil, but they're using the egg and the lime.
It sounds like you're really kind of skipping around a lot with different things, my dear.
Yeah, I am, because you're
don't
telling me I don't have a lot of time, and I'm reading from the notes, the email that I sent.
No, I'm talking about just in general on your health.
I'm a consultant, Patrick. I read deep. I jump down rabbit holes like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I know, and maybe that's maybe you might not want to do that so much. Because,
well, you know what? I'm trained to do research. I almost had a PhD in medical pharmacology from a top 10 university, and I fled that industry when Big Pharma started paying for research and telling you the results.
Yeah, I understand.
Before you did the experiments. And so I've spent 35 years on this.
Okay.
And I have a quick mind, and you guys don't have a whole lot of time, so...
Okay. Well,
there you go. Well, thank you so much.
So much.
It's a pleasure talking to both of you.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I guess I just wanted to kind of nicely say to her and others that if you can maybe trust somebody like yourself who has done this liver flush and see if you can do it like the way you've had a lot of success. Thousands of people have tried this, right? And
millions of people.
Yeah.
Have hundreds of thousands in just China and Taiwan and Russia.
Really?
In Spain, South America. Yeah, it's in so many languages that, yes, millions of people are doing those. So I get a lot of feedback. I get about 250 emails per day, and many of them just report, the different results they have. So I could just put a book, a big book.
Just the results,
just with the results.
Well, I had a good time when I did exactly the way you had prescribed when I've done the flushes. So for what that's worth, ladies and gentlemen. So it's called the Amazing Liver Gallbladder Flush, and you can just follow his instructions, and you'll probably have a good experience. If not, try it again. Andreas has talked about the lymph system, and gosh, it is so critical, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've been so in tune on this rebounder. Well, for almost 20 years now. In the early 90s is when I ran into a fellow at a natural food. It was one of these natural food expos, and he was jumping around in a rebounder, and he had one of these wireless mics, and he just looked great. And he was jumping around, and I don't think I really had seen any before. So I ordered one, and I've been jumping on a rebounder ever since. And I know it's been a key reason why I have been able to stay as healthy as I have for so long. And I'll be 65 chronologically in a few months. Well, in November, been around the sun 65 times, and biologically, I would argue I'm probably 35 or so in every regard. And I think the rebounder is one of the key reasons. I really do. It's something that you can do every day. You can just bounce on this rebounder without even jumping, where you just do what they call the health bounce. And that's been proven to pump that lymph system. It's like getting a lymph drainage thing. I did this morning for maybe 10 minutes. Just get on and just don't even leave the mat. We offer one that just is an amazing one. It's we think it's the best. It's $229 delivered. It's a Rebound Air, and you get a couple of CDs and a book and a lifetime warranty. Now, when's the last time you got a lifetime warranty on anything? This is on the mat, the spring breaks. You can just, boom, call them up and they'll send you another spring. Obviously, the mat, if there's any problems. It's a Rebound Air. It's a good one. It's a half full that we really sell, and it's $229. That is delivered anywhere in the continental United States. If you live in Hawaii or Canada, email me because it'll cost more for shipping. And it's right on the front page there. Just click and order through PayPal. You do not have to be a PayPal member. You can just use a credit card or debit card. And it's a Rebound Air right on the front page of OneRadioNetwork.com.
We are listener supported. One Radio Network. Talk to Patrick now. 888-663-6386. Or email patrick@oneradionetwork.com.
He's author of about 13 books or so, and he has 3 more coming out. His latest ones are about vaccine called Vaccine-Nation. Feel great and lose weight and heal yourself with sunlight. Andreas Moritz. Email or website, rather, Ener-Chi.com. AndreasMoritzblog.com. It's an honor to have you here. And if you've just tuned in, you definitely want to listen to the podcast when we post it in a few hours. And I think you'll hear probably one of the more amazing, I think, an intricate explanation on cancer, tumors and such, and pass this on to anyone that has some cancer things going on in their body. Here's an email from Maxim in Geneva, Switzerland. Andreas, please explain some more on your vegetarian lifestyle. Do you think that milk products at all, raw, unpasteurized, or eggs are valuable? Do you see any dangers of a vegetarian diet with respect to dental health? There has been a lot written about that. People, the advocates of the, I forget it, nourishing traditions idea that some animal fats are really necessary for dental health. What do you think, Andreas?
Well, I agree with you. I do eat butter, unsalted butter. That's the only thing that I have from animals, and I've been vegetarian for 40 years now. There was a time, though, that I couldn't even digest a vegetarian diet. I was very ill with eating animal products and particularly dairy products, and I had rheumatoid arthritis and arrhythmia, severe anemia, multiple deficiencies, that virtually everything that I ate I couldn't digest. And when I stopped eating meat and chicken and all those kinds of foods, I at least got rid of the arrhythmia, and I didn't die. I was told I was going to live just for another year, and I was just 12 years old.
My God.
So when I changed the diet, it did have an impact. However, only when I cleaned out my liver and removed about 3,500 stones, that's when my health really took off. I was perfectly capable of deriving my nutrients from the simple vegetarian diet. I eat lots of vegetables, cooked vegetables, some raw, like salads, lettuce, cucumber, avocado, those kind of things, and fruit, grain foods, nuts, seeds, spices, particularly turmeric and anything that goes with it, like in curries, and coconut milk or coconut milk powder that I add to the food, make it very delicious. So it's very easy to nourish the body with these kinds of foods, legumes sometimes. So I don't see that there's a necessity to eat other foods that are from animals, particularly when now, like in America, we now know that chicken, for example, have arsenic in them. They are actually fed with arsenic to kill parasites, and I wouldn't want to have arsenic in my body. The chicken litter is being used to feed cattle, so they get the arsenic. So you get it from that as well. If you have free-range chicken, and very hard to find, by the way, even the so-called free-range chicken, are not healthy anymore. They are still in cages. Again, they are dead. So if to put something dead into my body, heat it to the point that it is detoxified, that it doesn't have the parasites in them, doesn't make it any better, because once you heat animal protein, it coagulates. That means it's losing its three-dimensional structure, and in that form, the body has great trouble with it, because you have two-dimensional protein chains that can cause damage. They can cause irritation and inflammation in the blood vessels if that protein enters the blood, which you think you would want to, but in fact it's better if you don't, because if you do, then these proteins get integrated into the blood vessel wall. They can cause inflammation. That can cause blood bleeding. You have blood clots that could go into the heart and cause a heart attack or a stroke. And in order for the body to prevent that, it will have to build cholesterol layers, build them into the blood vessel walls so that these blood clots wouldn't escape. So it's a preventive mechanism, but it's called cardiovascular disease.
What was it? What prompted you to introduce some some raw butter into your diet. Do you and do you think it's helpful, as the Weston Price people say, some of these a little bit of animal fat is good for dental?
Very good, because in order to digest carbohydrates, proteins, virtually anything, you have to have fat. You cannot digest protein without fat. You cannot digest fat if you don't have enough bile. So it's not just the food. If you're not able to digest fats because you don't produce enough bile, then the fat is not going to do you any good. It can cause a lot of problems. If you are not getting the fat, then the different parts of your body cannot develop properly. You need to have the fat in order to stimulate digestive and metabolic functions that are essential for nourishing the tissues in the body. Cholesterol, for example, is a fatty. It's a combined molecular structure between protein and fatty acids. So you need both. You need to have the fat. Half of the brain is composed of fat. The heart itself is largely fat. Cholesterol. There's virtually no part in the body that is not made of cholesterol. All hormones are made of cholesterol. So you do need the fatty component, but you have to be able to digest it to make use of it. Otherwise, you have these trans fatty acids created, these faulty chains of acids, which are then getting into the cell membranes, and they cause severe damage. And that's where you can get arthritis, you can get all kinds of inflammatory responses, where it seems the body is attacking itself, but all the body does is attacking those damaged chains of fatty acids or protein fragments that sit there, and the body is trying to get rid of them through inflammation.
Do you recommend to your patients that you consult with, or what your ideas are on any kind of supplementation to help heal the gut and to build like probiotics, hydrochloric acid, or fermented foods? Well, fermented foods is not supplementation. That's a food.
That's a food.
Yeah, and that's, I would suspect that you think that these are really good, fermented foods.
Well, it depends on the body type. If you give that fermented food to a Pitta body type, then he will probably get loose stools, perhaps diarrhea, which is not a good thing.
Pitta in Ayurvedic medicine, Andreas, is more like hot.
Right.
It would be like
so you don't want to give too much sour food to a Pitta type,
right.
But you won't want to give that to a Vata type, because the Vata is more prone to constipation.
Mm-hmm.
The thin body type, more dryness in the body, and the sour food, the fermented food, will help to keep the moisture in the body, and that person should also have more salt. Whereas the Pitta type, you want to curb back on salt. So it depends on who you are.
Well, what kind of things ongoing food-wise or supplementation helps to build the inner terrain so we can really digest our food? What does that?
Well, mostly it is bile. The presence of bile keeps the probiotic bacteria intact, whereas the absence of bile leads to more destructive bacteria because you have more undigested food.
Mm-hmm.
When you have more undigested food in your gut, you will require more candida bacteria, more destructive decomposing bacteria, because if you don't have these bacteria, you have that rotting stuff sitting there. It's just not good for the body to have dead stuff sitting there too long. So sometimes we blame these destructive bacteria for causing us so many problems, but it's not true. It's in the presence of bile, you have a balanced proportion between probiotic and destructive bacteria. You have to have E. coli. If you don't have E. coli bacteria, you can die.
Yeah. So this bile flow, that's why the gallbladder flushes are so critical. The bile flow in the inner terrain helps everything live symbiotically and helps.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the body's natural laxative.
Mm-hmm.
If you lack it, then the passage of waste through your colon will slow down, and that means you have a chance for proliferation of destructive bacteria that try to decompose what the body could not get rid of fast enough.
Do you think anyone listening right now, whether on a podcast or live here this morning on June 16, could do well with a gallbladder flush?
Probably 99.9%.
99.9?
Living in this country, with all the chemtrails and the water pollution, the additives in food and the herbicides and pesticides, it's just almost impossible not to have it contaminated in your body.
Now, folks, get your book, The Amazing Liver Gallbladder Flush. You lay it out there, don't you? And does one have to eat a particular kind of diet working up to the gallbladder flush?
Well, during the 6 days of preparation, I recommend to lay low on animal proteins and fried foods and like sweets, too many sugary things, because that impairs liver. That's a burden to the liver. So you want to unburden the liver as much as possible, so that it can soften up these stone structures, and by the time you do the liver flush, you get the maximum benefit. Whereas if you overburden the liver during the preparation, then you will have less stones coming out.
Now, if I remember, it's been a while since I read your book. You have some options as far as, and an emailer wants to know how you feel like using orthophosphoric acid for the gallbladder flush instead of the malic acid.
Yes, I've seen some people benefit from, and other people didn't. Some people do that and they didn't get anything out. So, if you want to have an easy one, that's a new one that I came across, and that is 250 milliliters. That's about a quart of, a quarter quart of cherry juice that is sour tart, not the sweet one, but the sour tart version. There are two different types of cherry: the sour cherry and then the sweet cherry, the black sweet cherry. You want to have the sour tart cherry. You can find it in most grocery stores without any additives. It's just, it has the highest content of malic acid, but it's easy to ingest, and it's less amount. So 250 milliliters per day for the 6 days. That works really well as a preparation.
A milliliter, what is that? Give us an idea. In ounces, what would that be?
Yeah, that would be about, there are 32 ounces to a quart, right?
Yeah.
So that would be 8 ounces.
Oh, just 8 ounces of a good sour tart cherry juice.
You can dilute it if it's too sour, so there's no problem, but many people like it the way it is.
And that softens the stones, so when you do the flush, then they'll come out easier, the stones.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What's your first name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Hi, go ahead. Are you there? We lost you. You have to stay on hold there. 888-663-6386. Let's go back to diet a second. Just off the top of your head, Andreas Moritz, are there some real no-nos as far as you're concerned when it comes to food combining? Fats, sugar, carbs. What kind of things have you seen really broad stroke just don't work together?
Yes, as I mentioned, fat goes together with carbohydrates and with proteins. You need fat to digest these. Of course, provided you have enough bile to digest the fat that is needed to digest the carbohydrates. Otherwise, carbohydrates will go through your gut far too quickly to be absorbed. So you may have the best carbohydrates, vegetables, and grain foods, for example, or beans, and you're not going to digest them. So fat is needed to digest these.
So a sweet potato may be butter with a sweet potato.
Yes, you have to have fat with potato, sweet or white potato. Okay. Otherwise, that moves so quickly through the system that it will ferment in your large intestine. You get a lot of gas and toxins created by the bacteria that decompose them. If you eat fruit, that's one of the big no-nos. Don't combine it with anything else.
Anything else?
And don't eat it in the evening. It will just turn into alcohol.
Yeah.
Because the food is not digesting after 7, 8 o'clock. It's just the body stops digesting food at that time.
After 7. What about eat nuts with fruit, or just do it alone?
Yes, nuts can be taken with carbohydrates, no problem with vegetables, grains. But your fruit should go separate. Leave at least half an hour before you eat something else if you have eaten fruit. Your morning is a good time. Mid-morning is a good time to eat fruit. Mid-afternoon is still fine. But don't, fruit juices as well. Don't drink fruit juices with your meal. You'll just create a mess. Yeah.
So no other real, just don't.
Protein, if you eat animal protein and you combine it with carbohydrates like rice and steak, for example, it just doesn't work because you produce completely opposite types of secretions in the stomach. One for to digest the hydrochloric acid to digest the protein, and alkaline juices to digest the rice. Then these two become neutralized, and you don't digest either of these foods.
So the old steak and potato thing, that doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work. Maria wants to know. She said her son has had their gallbladder removed. Do you know anything about to alleviate severe obstructive sleep apnea? So there are two questions. So would you do, what are some special things you have to do if your gallbladder is removed, and then sleep apnea?
Well, the two actually are often occurring together, because if you have your gallbladder removed, you have had it removed because you had your congestion in the bile ducts of the liver, which formed stones, and that led to also stone growth in the gallbladder. So you have removed the gallbladder, but you haven't removed the original cause of the problem, which is the bile duct congestion.
Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm catching on to something here. So the bile duct congestion is separate from the gallbladder itself.
Yes, the gallbladder is a little bladder that is attached to the liver. And so the liver the liver has thousands and thousands of bile ducts. And it's like it's a tree, and you have two of those trees with branches, and bigger branches, smaller ones, and tiny ones. And so the whole liver is full of that. So each liver cell produces bile and pumps it into these bile ducts, and then they start passing it on to the larger bile ducts, and then to the bigger bile ducts, and eventually there are two major bile trunks that are combining into the common bile duct, which then takes the bile into the gallbladder. And
into
then
the gallbladder.
and then the gallbladder removes about 90% of the water content, and making the bile very, very thick, like a syrup. And then that is shot down into the small intestine when your food comes into the stomach. The moment the food comes into the stomach, that's when the gallbladder squeezes its content into the small intestine. So by the time the food leaves the stomach, then that food can combine with the bile in order to process the digestive function. So that's why it's so important, if you don't have a gallbladder, to at least get your bile ducts cleaned out, so that you allow the bile to come out of the liver and to improve the digestion somewhat, but to also allow the bile to take toxins out of the liver, which the liver removes from the bloodstream. Because at the moment, what you're doing is the toxins remain in the liver, and they're backwashed into the blood, and from there it goes into the lymphatic system, and it will dump into the tissues. And so when you have the lymph drainage problem that you have, that you will eventually have sleep apnea, because you have a lot of congestion in the abdomen. So that's why your abdomen is enlarged, and it puts pressure into the thoracic duct, and the thoracic duct doesn't drain from the throat and the neck area. That's why there's so much pressure building up all the way up to the throat. And so when you sleep, then you cannot breathe properly. It's just too much pressure.
So go all the way back to the liver. I can't believe it. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 people that have had their gallbladder removed. Douglas. Wow. Is it that Kota?
So common.
Must be common. So they're all asking this. Yeah.
20 million a year.
How many? 20?
20 million.
Oh my God. So the strategy, though, if the gallbladder was removed for stones or an infection, the issue was the bile ducts in the liver were obstructed.
Blocked up, yes.
Yeah. So they can still do the liver gallbladder flush without a gallbladder.
Yes, absolutely. And they will be surprised because I get so many people who have their gallbladders removed and they complain about the same problem.
Yeah. And they say, what's the matter? It's not in there. So what strategy eating do people have to follow without a gallbladder? Can you still eat fat?
The problem is that there's only a trickle of bile, like one drop at a time, coming out of the liver.
Oh, my goodness.
And that means you don't have a concentrated force of concentrated bile to combine with the fat to digest it. So that's why they will have a lot of problem with a lot of foods, because as I mentioned, you need to have fat to digest proteins and carbohydrates. You need more fat to digest proteins than you need to digest carbohydrates. So for them, that eating animal protein is like a big no-no. If you do that, you develop a lot of other problems. You can get joint problems, a lot of uric acid, like gout-like symptoms, arthritis, your cardiovascular problems, blood pressure problems, kidney problems. So it's better not to eat the protein, which you don't need anyway. I'm living proof. I've not eaten protein foods for 40 years.
You mean animal protein?
Yeah, animal proteins. And I don't eat consciously any protein foods.
So without a gallbladder, you'd be better served being a vegetarian.
That's right. So yeah, definitely. But then you may take a bile supplement, and that's the only case where I would recommend take some. The only one that really works is ox bile. Ox bile. But make sure you don't overdose on it, because if you do, you get diarrhea. So only take as much as you don't get loose stools.
Is that a standard process?
That is standard process. Every doctor should tell their patients afterwards, but most doctors don't.
Ox bile.
Yeah.
And, okay, so that would be good. That'll help to produce more bile for the non-gallbladder people.
Right.
This idea the fats needed for protein is fascinating. Is there a difference that the body gets coconut oil or flax oil or olive oil or maybe fat from maybe butter or cream? Is there any advantage to either, or do they both work?
They work in different ways, like palm oil or coconut oil. It's a carbohydrate, by the way.
It's a carbohydrate?
Yeah, but that's why it's
I thought it was a fat.
Well, it is. It's fatty, but it's different. It doesn't require bile. That's why for people who have no gallbladder, coconut oil or palm oil is one of the best oils.
Interesting.
And it still helps with the digestion of other foods. So, but it goes straight to the liver in its complete form, and the liver breaks it down and actually makes glucose from it. So you can actually feed your cells with it. So it's different than these other oils, like olive oil or butter. You need to have bile to digest them.
I see.
So I would take all of them. I mean, I eat olive oil, and coconut oil, and butter. These are my main sources. I love olive oil.
Yeah. How about chia oil? I've seen that. Is that a valuable thing to look at?
It is, but I would take chia seeds.
Not the oil?
To grind them, because there are so many wonderful things in them, and you don't want to miss out on that. Chia seeds is one of the most, greatest superfoods on the planet.
Really?
Yeah, it's just so full of minerals and vitamins and complete proteins, if you're after proteins. That many people in the Aztecs or in the Incas, they used to just live off chia seeds if they didn't have anything else, and they were perfect. They had no deficiencies.
I've not messed with them much, Andreas. What do you do? I think, do you soak them? And
how
do you eat
soak them? Let's say if you have a cereal, you soak it with the cereal, or you soak them in water and then, or you can grind them and then add them to your food. You can put them over salad or vegetables, and it's a great addition. It becomes sort of swells if you soak it in water, and then it becomes even more tasty.
Lindy wants to know, Patrick has had guests on in the past that suggest that sugar and protein is not a good idea. Does Andreas agree?
I agree that sugar is not a good idea, full stop. There's more and more research coming through that sugar, as a refined sugar, a processed sugar, causes probably more illnesses than any other food. There's just not a single illness that is not related to sugar consumption.
Do you think that would hold true for even raw honey with butter, raw honey and milk?
Raw honey is actually quite beneficial, and it doesn't go through the stomach wall into the bloodstream right away. It's digested differently. So I do have a teaspoon of raw honey in my warm water in the morning with two slices of lemon or lime, and that cleanses and rinses the digestive tract. That's a good practice for anyone.
Do you think apple cider vinegar is a reasonable thing to take?
Some people cannot do it. Some pitta types have some difficulties. Vatas definitely benefit from it, so they love vinegars. It's very good for them. Pitta types have difficulties with vinegar, so it depends on the person.
Yeah. If you'd like to learn more about that, do you have a book that goes into the Ayurveda idea with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which I think is really fascinating?
Big book.
What's it called?
550 pages. It's called Timeless Secrets of Health and Rejuvenation.
Oh, the Ayurveda science is fascinating, isn't it, Andreas?
And it's made simple in the book, so it's not complicated. It's straightforward. It's so easy to understand that laymen and medical doctors and naturopaths, they just love it because it's so practical. You get it immediately. You understand why to do certain things and to keep your body healthy for the rest of your life.
If you're on hold, stay right there. We're going to get to you after this next email. This is from Bridget. Please ask Andreas if he knows what ridges in the nails mean. I used to have very strong nails. Seems like in the past 10 years, the nails have been changing with ridges, starting with my little finger. And, wow, there's an Ayurvedic diagnosis of that, isn't there?
Yes. It basically means that there's absorption difficulties of certain minerals and foods. So when the digestion is not working well, then the food is not absorbed properly. When there are absorption problems, you'll get ridges in your fingernails. That means there are certain things missing that don't go to the nails anymore because of the digestive issue.
So it's not necessarily how many minerals you're taking in, but what you're absorbing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, bile is needed to digest calcium and magnesium and zinc and all those minerals. And many vitamins require bile, the presence of bile, to digest them and absorb them. And so if there are any deficiencies on the level of the hair or the nails, then that shows the small intestine particularly not working as efficiently.
We're with Andreas Moritz, 13 books, 3 more in the works. His website, Ener-Chi, ENER-Chi.com. He does a blog, too, AndreasMoritzblog.com, AndreasMoritzblog.com. Thanks for holding. What is your first name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Hello. I don't know why people call and then they stay on hold for 10 minutes and don't say anything. They just wanted to hear us breathe. 888-663-6386. Here is an email from James. Dr. Simoncini, cancer is a fungus. What does Andreas think about this concept?
Well, there is fungus in every cancer. It's not that the fungus is actually causing the cancer. The fungus is there to actually get to the point of decomposing it when the stage has been reached, where decomposition or breaking down the tumor is feasible and necessary. So you will always find in every cancer cell, you find fungus, you find candida bacteria, and you find TB bacteria or similar bacteria that have great capability of decomposing the cell when the saturation of these microorganisms has been reached. So I understand the theory behind it, and giving an alkaline substance to the tissues so that the cancer would break down. But my approach to cancer is not to target the cancer per se, to try to destroy it. You can do that. It's as long as you're dealing with the root causes of the cancer, you can also clear up the symptom of the cancer, but not without dealing with the root causes.
Mm-hmm.
The fungus is not the enemy. It's not the cause of the cancer. Just like the fungus on the surface of an apple that's fallen from the tree and sits there long enough, and the bacteria have done their job in helping to decompose much of it. Once they're all dead apple cells, then the fungus will be there. And the same thing you'll find, cancer cells. There are lots of damaged cells there that have not received enough oxygen, and a lot of dead cells there as well. So you can expect fungus to be present in any cancer, any tumor.
A lot of folks have trouble even doing brown rice with candida, and it feeds it. But you don't seem to have a problem. You do brown rice. What's going on here?
Again, if the digestive, that's why it brings it back to the liver. If the food isn't digested well, you will get candida issues, which can spread to all over the body. You can get into the skin. You can get into as far as the skin. That means anything in between the skin and the digestive system. So candida bacteria and fungus, candida, fungal illnesses, they are related to, they're starting in the gut, and that's where we should take them back to, where do we breed them in the first place? Instead of blaming them or vilifying them, it's good to ask the question, what else do I do in my life that requires the help of these things? Why do I not digest the rice? Not just not blaming the rice or the type of food that you eat necessarily, but why don't I digest it, and why is it then causing me so many problems? Because undigested food is the biggest issue.
Big problem.
That is the source of contamination in the body.
It appears that so many Americans, even people that really are natural food kind of people like you and I, still have low hydrochloric acid. Certainly evident in the mainstream with everybody taking these acid blockers when they have no acid. How does that combine with the bile flow? Is it all back to the bile flow, Andreas Moritz, and will that build the hydrochloric acid?
The thing is that your body, if you are not capable of producing enough bile, your body is signaling. The liver actually is a speaking organ. It produces many hormones. So there are lots of exchanges between the liver and the rest of the gastrointestinal tract, all the way up to your salivary glands. And of course, the brain is computing all of that. Now, when you are not having enough bile coming out of your liver, then it is, it's very important that you don't overproduce on hydrochloric acid. So you actually produce less hydrochloric acid because it could be extremely damaging. When you have not enough bile, but you have the regular amount of hydrochloric acid, what is happening is that you have the acid food content traveling down. That is not neutralized by the bile and the pancreatic juices, which are alkaline. So now you have acid, hydrochloric acid moving down through your small intestine, and guess what? This is going to erode. This can cause erosion problems in the wall of your intestines, and you don't want that. You don't want to have perforations occurring.
Yeah.
So the body does everything. Everything what we call disease is actually a protective mechanism. And we have to, instead of looking at just the stomach, oh my God, my stomach doesn't make enough hydrochloric acid. You're giving me a problem, because these people will complain about heartburn. You know what heartburn is?
Not enough acid.
Stomach content, hydrochloric acid moving through the sphincter of the esophagus into the esophagus, and it comes up in your mouth. And so then you say, oh my God, I'm feeling this burning sensation in the middle of my chest. Why does that happen? It's because you have too little hydrochloric acid.
Too little.
Because when you have too little hydrochloric acid, the sphincter of the esophagus no longer closes. It only closes when you have enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So many people are saying, well, I have heartburn, I need to have a drug that that neutralizes the acid in the stomach, and that means they make even less hydrochloric acid. So after a while, the stomach it becomes lazy. It's just the stomach cells that produce hydrochloric acid, they become damaged because of the erosion that comes with these your antacids. And so then after a while, you have a permanent situation of acid reflux. Unless you keep taking these drugs all the time.
Do you ever advocate taking hydrochloric acid?
I personally don't recommend it because if you make enough bile and you eat your food slowly, now a lot of people eat their food very fast, right? So then they miss out on the salivary enzymes, which are supposed to take care of digesting 80% of the carbohydrates that we eat. So when you eat it too quickly or you drink juices without swishing them around in your mouth and mixing them thoroughly with these salivary enzymes, you won't be able to digest these foods in the stomach or thereafter.
So
mastication is probably the most important thing that you do when you eat food.
Here's a 53-year-old woman. She says, what does it mean if the tip of my tongue gets a burning sensation or on my lips? I've had my gallbladder removed a year ago. Burning sensation with the lips or tongue. Any ideas what that could be?
Yes, basically, this is exactly what we have been talking about. Not enough bile, and the stomach acid is not neutralized properly. The tip of the tongue, that area relates to the stomach, so there are stomach issues, definitely. And I used to have that a lot, before I cleaned out my liver, and then it disappeared and never had it again. A lot of people have tongue ulcers as well, and when you look at the tongue, it's like a mirror for the organs and systems in the body. Every organ is represented on the tongue.
Many people are plagued with canker sores, like on the inside of the cheek and such, especially if they bite it. Well, what is going on there?
Well, it's basically ulceration in different segments or parts of the gastrointestinal tract.
Oh, is it?
So since everything from the mouth to the anus, which constitutes the alimentary tract, the digestion begins in the mouth. So that's the first part of the digestive system. If you have any parts, let's say in the colon, where there's an irritation, chronic irritation because of a stricture or an inflammatory process, diverticulitis, where there are pockets of waste matter that are pressed into the wall of the colon, and they sit there because there's just constipation or congestion in the colon, then you will have a similar situation showing up on the tongue, that or in the mouth, in different parts of the mouth that connect or correspond to that part of the intestine. For example, the entire lower lip is connected to the large intestine. The upper lip is connected to the stomach. And so any sensations in the corners, like many people have, like splitting, or they have ulcerations in the corner of the mouth, that's duodenal ulcers. So there's ulceration or inflammation in the duodenum, in the first section of the small intestine.
And this all stems back to bile flow.
Bile is it's just like that substance that does everything in the body. It's just like that universal remedy. It's the panacea for digestive problems, for keeping the bacterial population intact, for removing toxins, because bile is the vehicle, is the transport mechanism for the liver for getting rid of toxins and waste products and noxious substances. The liver is the filter of the blood. The kidneys are only taking excessive plasma out of the blood. The liver is detoxifying the blood. It's making sure that the blood is neat and clean.
Let's go back to traditional societies. Do we have any way of knowing was there a mechanism for flushing the liver gallbladder, or
yes,
with just natural foods, did you not need to do it?
Well, in those days, you didn't have artificial, synthetic vitamins, hormones, synthetic everything. Now we have like 40,000 different kinds of foods. Most of them are factory made. We have herbicides, pesticides, chemtrails. You're dropping poisons on us. There's just pollution everywhere. So now our livers are far more overtaxed than at any time in human history. But you go back to the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, to the Egyptians, and the Indians, India, you'll find that they had the remedies for cleaning out the liver, which used oil and lemon juice, citrus juice. So it's not a new thing. It's something that existed. When I lived in Cyprus for 15 years, in the Greek part of Cyprus, and I visited Greek villages, and I asked the grandmothers, what do you do when your grandchildren get sick? Well, we give them olive oil and lemon juice to drink.
Really?
And then I said, they have these green things coming out of them. And so I said, and what happens? Well, they are healthy again. They don't need anything for another year. But we do that with them when they get sick, and we know that they need to clean out. And that's what they knew. They didn't know how and why.
My God.
They just knew how, through observation, that this worked.
So then do you feel with the protocol with your book, The Amazing Liver Gallbladder Flush, with the Epsom salts and malic acid, these are all just extra added attractions to leverage this protocol to make it more powerful?
Yes, and because we have far more toxins, we need a sort of stronger protocol. Not just like once a year here and there, but our livers are so contaminated. It's like the filter is getting dirty faster because of the high pollution than it used to be 100 years ago when there was very little.
How often do you still do today?
I do it once a year. I no longer pass any stones in the last 12, 13, 14 years because my diet and lifestyle is such that I don't get exposed to much.
So then you feel then, regardless of what you're exposed to in the air and such, your liver is in a state where it can deal with it?
Oh, yes. Now the liver, because it's clean, it can deal with whatever comes through. But I had bile duct congestion when I was 6 years old.
My goodness.
So I had stones when I was that age, and that's why my health declined so rapidly. And by age 12, I was literally not able to live.
Yeah. Is there facial diagnosis or things that we can look at to see for fun if we need to have a liver gallbladder flush? I know Ayurvedic medicine does a lot of...
There's a chapter in the book that shows the marks and the indicators for gallstones presence in gallstones in the liver bile ducts.
Really? You can actually see it on the face?
Yes, there are marks and there are lines like if you have vertical lines that run between your eyebrows, then that's a typical telltale sign. Discoloration under the eyes, like dark rings under the eyes, that shows it. Just a grayish color of the facial color, or reddening in the chest or in the face, that shows it. Then there are so-called liver spots. Guess why they call them liver spots?
Yep.
On the back of the hands or on the face. If there are big ones, that shows the gallbladder has stones. There are many different signs, and just almost every kind of health condition can be related back to bile duct congestion.
And how long do you wait in between flushes if somebody wants
4 weeks?
3 or 4 weeks, and then do another one.
Yeah.
And you do recommend doing a colonic a couple days after, correct?
Yes, but within 3 days after, not later than that. Or colima. which is like a home colonic. You can do it yourself. There's more information on my website, but definitely, because there are always some stones that get caught in the colon, and you want to make sure that they all come out and they're flushed out with the water. With these procedures.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I think we talked on the air, and I did a liver gallbladder flush, and I didn't do the colonic, and a lot of stones came out, and boy, I felt terrible, Andre. I just the next week, I just felt like a truck hit me.
Right. You don't want to keep them inside.
And why don't they all come out? They just kind of get stuck.
Well, they are irritating, so it can cause parts of the colon to tighten and to become contracted, and so that can hold them up, and then they decompose, and then they leave their toxins in the colon, and those toxins get reabsorbed. So it doesn't make any sense to get them out of the liver just to keep them in the colon.
And now, just to be clear, then these stones are coming out of the ducts in the gallbladder and in the liver, right?
Yes, out of the gallbladder and the bile ducts in the liver.
I see.
But mostly from the bile ducts of the liver. They're called cholesterol stones. They're not like rocks that you can throw at someone. You cannot hurt someone with throwing these green cholesterol stones at someone. They're soft, putty-like. They decompose when you put them in the air or in warmth or heat, because they are 90% cholesterol. So most of it is just fat. But it's hardened fat. It's it's biocomponents that are normally liquid, but they become so deprived of water that they become really hard, or like waxy, and they become obstructive. So they can go into the pancreatic duct even and cause pancreatitis, which is the commonest cause of pancreatitis. So you do want to clear them out. Many people don't, and then they have gallstone attacks, or pancreatitis, or diabetes, which can be caused by these stones entering the pancreatic duct.
Well, Andreas Moritz, you're a real inspiration to us all. I'm going to grab my book off the shelf and think I'm going to do one. I haven't done one for a while, liver gallbladder flush. So you're working on 3 new books.
Yes.
And your latest ones are about vaccine, feeling great, losing weight, and also...
Vaccination with a hyphen in between. It's probably the most important book I've ever written.
Really?
I couldn't believe it myself when I started digging into everything, and I really discovered that most of the modern illnesses we have are actually caused by vaccines.
And then the latest one is also about sunlight. Andreas, we're out of time, but it's been an honor to have you. We won't wait so long before we do have it again, okay?
Great.
And I'll send you the link, and I appreciate you putting it on your website, and we'll spread the word.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Andreas.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Have a beautiful day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. Well, again, if you just tuned in, you want to get that first hour and dig in and get Mr. Moritz's ideas on cancer. Yeah, I'm going to do a liver gallbladder flush, and I'm going to do one. It's been a long time. I'm going to grab his book, or Dr. Jeb's got a book. They'll both work. I love you all very much. Lots to talk about tomorrow. Thank you for your support. Patrick Timpone, take care. Open phone Friday tomorrow at 9 o'clock. See you tomorrow.
Broadcasting from the beautiful Hill Country in Texas, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.